Hi everyone, I'm Cheryl Butler, and you're listening to the Mighty Mommy's Quick and Dirty Tips podcast, which will help make your life as a parent a little bit easier and so much more fun. Welcome. Today's episode is number 516, 5 Ways Positive Discipline Makes Parenting Easier, because when we inject positivity into our parenting regime, things don't have to be so overwhelming and complicated. If there's one thing I've learned in my 25 years of parenting, it's that kids themselves aren't bad. It's their behavior that can push us over the edge. As the oldest of 5 and the daughter of 2 teachers, I was so lucky to be raised with the understanding that we're all human, we make mistakes, and we hopefully learn from our mistakes. And when we do something disobedient, it's our behavior that's unacceptable, not us as a human being. My upbringing helped lay the foundation for my own approach to discipline, which is to use bad behavior as a teachable moment rather than a punishment. But if I'm completely honest, there were plenty of days when my kids pushed my buttons so hard that I slipped from this ideal. No matter how many years you've been a parent, sometimes you need to take a step back and reevaluate what's working and not working in your parenting regime. If discipline is something you'd like to improve upon, but find that you're exhausted when presented with a cherub who knows the fine art of manipulation, don't despair. Mighty Mommy has 5 simple strategies that will help you incorporate positive discipline into your parenting routine and make that disobedient behavior a thing of the past. Here they are. Name the bad behavior. Stop nagging. Use warmth and understanding. Don't threaten isolation. Catch them doing good. Let's explore each in more detail. Tip number 1. Name the bad behavior, not the bad child. Parents in the 21st century tend to overcomplicate how we raise our children. We have so many competing agendas between home, work, and outside commitments that we often fail to prioritize how we expend our energy. Obviously, life can get complicated. We know that. But on those days when our kid insists on wearing underwear outside his pants and we find a rainbow of melted crayons in the dryer, it's easy to lose perspective of the big picture. And that is to raise self-sufficient, productive children who will make a positive contribution to this world. It's so tempting to lose your cool in a frustrating moment, I know. But remember that a large part of effective discipline is not what we do, but how we do it. And this includes our choice of words and the tone we use. So, the next time your kindergartner decides to crack a dozen eggs all over the rug and use them as finger paint, or your teenager borrows the car without asking and stays out hours past curfew, refrain from labeling the child as bad, but instead focus on the bad action. So you could say, Annie, we use eggs to cook with, not as art supplies. Now you're going to help Mommy clean this mess up. And as for that sneaky teen who helped himself to your SUV, try this. Alex, you know that one of the rules for driving is that you must always ask to borrow my car, no matter what. The other non-negotiable is being late for curfew. I'm glad you're okay and nothing happened, but your choice results in no car privileges for the next 2 weekends. That's it. No negotiation. Tip number 2. Stop nagging. Do you have anyone in your life who's a constant nagger? Someone who continually criticizes everything? In Psychology Today's article, Worst Mistakes Parents Make When Talking to Kids, author Melanie Greenberg, PhD, says, the problem with nagging is that you're actually training your kids to ignore you because they know they're going to be more reminders down the road. This is so true. When a parent gets on the nagging bandwagon, the child has 2 choices: listen with frustration or tune mom out. Neither is a good solution for the parent or child. So rather than back yourself into such a negative corner, start being more mindful of how you speak to your child. When you talk with a calm, matter-of-fact tone, and leave the nagging and critical innuendos behind, you'll have a much better chance of getting your child to listen and respond, and at the same time, you'll be setting a great example for positive communication. And by the way, this approach works on spouses as well. Tip number 3, use warmth and understanding. On the one hand, American parents theoretically want our kids to learn independence, and on the other, we also want to control their actions. Being a controlling parent isn't the same as one who sets necessary limits for a child. All kids need boundaries. Curfews, nutritionally balanced eating choices, and solid bedtime and homework routines are healthy limits. A controlling parent, however, is overbearing and often tries to regulate a child's words, clothes, activities, and friends. Even worse is when a parent's controlling behavior eventually leads to manipulation and guilt. Tactics such as these won't allow for effective discipline strategies and could eventually lead to resentment from your child. If controlling maneuvers are part of the norm for you, regardless of your child's age, it's time to take an immediate look at why you feel this is an appropriate tool. A study published in the Journal of Positive Psychology found that being raised by parents who aren't psychologically controlling makes for happier adults. Mai Stafford, the lead author of the study, says, people whose parents showed warmth and responsiveness had higher life satisfaction and better mental well-being throughout early, middle, and late adulthood. Naturally, parents can't be warm and fuzzy 24/7. Parenthood is tough and often draining. But if you're a control freak with your kids, try to interject some more love and kindness into your approach. This method can help keep little things from escalating and allow your child to figure things out on their own. And tip number 4, don't threaten isolation. In my 25 years of parenting, one of the most widely used and controversial methods of discipline has been the timeout. I've used this technique a handful of times and can attest to its limited benefits, specifically when you need to remove a child from a toxic situation so he could cool down. However, recent studies are showing that isolating a child when trying to teach him right from wrong is not necessarily the way to go. I agreed with writer David Marquette's Forbes article, 5 Things Good Parents Never Say to Their Children. Marquette explains that when you threaten your child with isolation as a consequence for bad behavior, it could backfire. He writes, this is a threat that makes children feel unsafe, and it's particularly malicious as a punishment because it teaches that isolation is a legitimate response to something you don't like. This sets kids up to be adults who practice the silent treatment or otherwise withhold love, which is particularly harmful to relationships. A more positive approach to handle unwelcome behavior is to calmly discuss the problem with the child and ask why he's feeling angry. Or if the child is younger, redirect the child to another task that will remove him from the issue, but not sequester him to a remote location that could leave him feeling betrayed and frustrated. And tip number 5, my favorite, catch them doing good. This is one of my favorite strategies when it comes to children's behavior. Our tendency is to focus on what's wrong or what our child is not doing. But this approach is inherently negative. About 15 years ago, the teachers at my kids' elementary school implemented a new system called Getting Caught. The key here was that teachers would be on the lookout for good things the students were doing. They'd catch them in the act and give them a written citation explaining the good behavior. These included a teacher observing a student befriending a new kid on the playground, or a child sharing a snack with someone who didn't have one that day. It might have been noticing a child who exhibited a lot of patience waiting in a long line, or a child who raised his hand instead of interrupting. One thing was for sure, the majority of the students wanted to rise to the occasion and practice good behavior because it felt great to be noticed for something positive. That new policy made a big impression on me, And ever since then, I have implemented the strategy in my home. I'm genuine with my praise when one of my kids does something good, especially if he or she has had trouble with it in the past. My consistent praise for good actions has rubbed off on my kids and how they treat their siblings and friends. So, catch your kids in the act of doing something good and let them know it. And again, this works great for spouses and partners too. How do you keep things more positive in your parenting life? Please share your thoughts in the comments section at quickanddirtytips.com/mighty-mommy. Or you can post your ideas on the Mighty Mommy Facebook page. And I always love it when you email me at mommy@quickanddirtytips.com. Wishing you and your family a week that's focused on positive things. As always, thanks for listening, and until next time, happy parenting.